Do you ever wonder how a galactic civil war that shattered the Imperium of Man and doomed humanity for the next 10,000 years all started? Spoiler alert, it involves a Warmaster with daddy issues, getting buck-shanked by a stinky blade, and a whole lot of questionable decision-making. Welcome to the start of my Horus Heresy review series, where I'll be diving into every single book in the series, unraveling the heresy one betrayal at a time, and trying to keep my brain from melting in the process. We're starting with Horus Rising by Dan Abnett, the book that fooled us into thinking Horus might actually be a pretty decent guy. Turns out, not so much. In this review series, I'll be grading each book using the highly prestigious Milk Jar scale, evaluating 3 key categories: story and pacing, characters and relationships, and writing and world building. Each scored out of 10 milk jars. Why milk jars? Well, if the Emperor can be worshipped as a god, I can definitely rate books using dairy products. After scoring each category, we'll average the results to give the book a final score out of 10. A perfect 10 milk jar score means the book is as flawless as Sanguinius's hair. A 1 milk jar score means it's about as cursed as Fulgrim's art collection. So let's dive into Horus Rising and figure out exactly where things started going off the rails. Horus Rising by Dan Abnett is the first book in the Colossus Horus Heresy series, chronicling the rise of Horus Lupercal and the early cracks forming in the Imperium of Man. The story begins in the 203rd year of the Great Crusade, shortly after the Emperor of Mankind has appointed Horus Lupercal, the Primarch of the Luna Wolves, as the Warmaster. Horus's first major task in his new role is the pacification of 6319, a human world ruled by a man claiming to be the Emperor of Mankind. When Horus's envoy and favored son, Hastur Sejanus, is killed by the Sovereign's bodyguards, Horus responds with a brutal invasion and personally kills the false emperor himself. Whoa, lots of foreshadowing there, fellas. Following the victory, Horus invites Captain Garviel Loken, a respected and moral warrior and captain of the 10th Company, to join the Marnival. An informal council of advisors to Horus, made up of Ezekiel Abaddon,
Look at this dude.
Tarek Torgotten,
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
and Horus Aximon.
I mean, it's alright, like...
Meanwhile, remembrancers, a group of historians and artists, are sent by the Council of Terra to document the Great Crusade, and they begin to form bonds with the Astartes, particularly with Loken. Although the false emperor was dead, resistance on 6319 remained, specifically in the Whisperhead Mountains, a rebel stronghold that had yet to fall. Horus tasked Loken and his company with capturing this fort. During their approach, the 10th Company and the accompanying units of the Imperial Guard began hearing strange whispers over the Vox. Loken dismisses them as Vox distortion or a desperate scare tactic by the rebels. The Luna Wolves make short work of the enemy forces and easily take the stronghold. But at the end of the battle, a new and far more terrifying threat emerges. Loken's fellow Marine, Xavier Jabal, becomes possessed by a warp entity named Samus. After slaughtering several fellow Space Marines, Loken is able to finally kill his former brother. This chilling encounter shakes Loken's belief in the Imperial truth, the Emperor's doctrine that denies the existence of gods and supernatural forces. Loken is not the only one affected by Jabal's possession. Euphrates Keeler, a remembrancer who also witnessed the demon-possessed Marine, begins having religious visions of the Emperor as a divine figure, foreshadowing the rise of the future imperial cult. After the conquest of 6319, tensions begin to rise when the fleet answers a distress call from the Blood Angels on the planet of Murder, where the Luna Wolves encounter the Mecharachnids, a deadly insectoid creature. During this campaign, Loken becomes disturbed by the existence of the secret warrior lodges within his legion, which promote secrecy and loyalty to the Brotherhood above the chain of command. After defeating the Mecharachnids, Horus encounters a fleet of peaceful beings called the Interax, a human civilization that peacefully coexists with Xenos species and possesses knowledge about the dangers of chaos. Horus attempts to negotiate peace with the Interrex, but tensions rise when secretly Erebus, the first chaplain of the Wordbearers and a secret servant of chaos, steals the Anthem, a cursed chaos artifact, from the Interrex Museum. This theft causes the Interrex to accuse the Imperium of betrayal, leading to a violent conflict where Horus orders the destruction of the Interrex. Loki becomes increasingly uneasy with Horus' decision and the growing influence of chaos within the fleet. The book ends with Horus triumphant, but under increasing pressure as the seeds of chaos, corruption, and betrayal begin to take root within the Imperium. The theft of the Anthem foreshadows Erebus' deeper role in manipulating Horus and setting the stage for the catastrophic events of the Horus Heresy. The book ends with Horus and his crew heading towards the fateful moon of Davin. Uh-oh, fellas. No, Horus, no! Don't go to Davin! No! At its core, Horus Rising explores themes of loyalty, ambition, and the dangers of unchecked power. It paints the Imperium as a rising force built on the ideals of unity and reason, but those ideals are already starting to crack under the weight of political scheming, personal pride, and some seriously bad vibes from the war. Horus's rise to Warmaster sets the stage for the growing divide within the Imperium, and Erebus' theft of the Anthem hits at the dark corruption already creeping in. This is the beginning of the end. We're just waiting for the first real cracks to shatter everything. Horus Rising absolutely nails the tone and the atmosphere of the Great Crusade. Dan Abnett's writing is crisp and engaging, with just the right balance of military grimness and genuine human moments. The characters feel real. Loken is a fantastic entry point into the Legion, and his arc from a loyal soldier to a man starting to question the Imperium's true nature is handled with a lot of nuance. You really feel like you're walking alongside Loken as he grapples with the widening gap between the ideals of the Crusade and the increasing brutal reality of it. Then you've got the Mournival, and oh my fucking god, they steal the show. The relationship between Horus and his inner circle is goddamn chef's kiss. It's nothing short of perfection. Loken, Abaddon, Aximand, and Torgotten feel like real people. Brothers in arms who balance each other out perfectly. Their dynamic is pure gold. You've got Abaddon, the hard-nosed, fiercely loyal warrior who'd follow Horus into hell without question. Aximand, the quiet, calculating one who's always analyzing the bigger picture. Loken, the moral center who's always trying to figure out the line between loyalty and blind obedience. And last, but definitely not least, Torgotten, the Joker who keeps the mood light even when things get dark. My personal favorite character. The dude is a literal Chad, and he bullies the fuck out of the Emperor's children. I fucking love it. In the future, I'm legit going to do a video glazing the fuck out of him. The way they play off each other, from Abaddon barely contained aggression to Torgotten's dry humor, it just makes their scenes perfect and some of the best parts in the book. And the fact that they all love and respect Horus so deeply adds this tragic weight to everything. You know this isn't going to end well. You're watching a family that's destined to shatter, but you just can't look away. The Mournival gives Horus so much humanity. He's not just a godlike Primarch, he's a leader trying to guide his closest friends through the murky politics and brutal warfare of the Great Crusade. When they sit down with him to give counsel, you get the sense that Horus genuinely values their input, and that's rare in Warhammer 40K, where most Primarchs treat their subordinates like paper towels. On the subject of Horus's humanity, seeing his relationship with his brother Primarchs is fucking awesome. Especially with Sanguinius, the Hawk Boy himself. Throughout the book, especially on the planet of murder, Sanguinius and Horus bond, and it's just great to see them converse and spend time together as they truly appear to be brothers. Making it even more tragic since we know Horus is going to try to have Sanguinius anally probed by a demon at Cygnus Prime, and then later on, kill him. which absolutely sucks because the two have an absolutely great relationship. Similar to the Mournival, I absolutely love the brotherhood and relationships between all of the Space Marines in the book. Like Saul, Tarvis, and Loken, there's just an element of friendship, rivalry, and camaraderie amongst them that makes them seem incredibly human compared to their counterparts 10,000 years in the future. It shows that the Horus Heresy not only destroyed the Emperor's dream, it shattered the Space Marines' humanity. Finally, the sense of foreboding is palpable throughout the book. Erebus lurking in the background like the ultimate cunt, chiral Cindermans growing unease with the secular truth of the Imperium, and the sheer weight of history pressing down on each and every one of Horus's decisions. All of it creates this creeping sense of dread that shit's about to hit the fan. There's this tragic inevitability baked into the story where you know Horus is going to fall, and yet Abnet makes you root for him anyway. The action scenes are also fucking fantastic. Brutal, fast-paced, and cinematic without being over the top. The battle on the Whisperhead Mountains is particularly amazing. Lastly, I have to give credit where it's due. Making Horus likable before he inevitably goes full traitor was a tough task, and Abnet pulls it off flawlessly. This book could have easily fallen into the trap of making Horus seem like a dick and villainous from the start, but instead you understand why people worship him and love him, which makes his inevitable heel turn all the more painful. Alright, so what did I not like? So while the opening and first battle hit like a thunderhammer to the chest, the book definitely loses some momentum afterwards. The first few chapters feel a bit like reading the terms and conditions of the Imperium. You know it's important, but your eyes are glazing over halfway through. There's a lot of political chatter, philosophical musings about the nature of the Imperium, and detailed descriptions of the Great Crusade's progress. Don't get me wrong, the lore is rich, and Abnet is setting the stage for some galaxy-breaking drama, but it feels like you're wading through molasses at all times. Once the action finally kicks in, it's fucking fantastic, but getting there requires some patience and maybe a cup of coffee. The remembrancers also feel a bit underdeveloped. The idea of artists and historians chronicling the Great Crusade is fascinating, adding a human perspective to the brutal warfare, but most of them feel like background noise. Euphrasia Keeler is one of the only ones that stands out, especially as her religious visions hint at the rise of the Imperial cult, but the others don't leave much of an impression. Carcassi is intriguing as a cynical poet, poking at the cracks in the Imperial propaganda, and Mercedes Olsen has a few good moments, but the rest mostly exist to ask questions so the Astartes can explain things, or to react in horror to the Luna Wolves' brutality. It feels like missed potential, a deeper clash between the Remembrancers' ideals and the harsh reality of the Great Crusade would have added a lot more weight. This next complaint is kind of me just bitching to bitch, but Horus is basically a walking recruitment poster for the Imperium. He's too perfect. He's just too perfect. He's the best warrior, the best leader, the best strategist, and if the Emperor handed him a guitar, he would have topped the galactic charts. He's so effortlessly perfect that it almost takes away from the weight of his inevitable fall. Like, how do you go from this guy to the fucking crazed nut job who tears the Imperium apart? The tragedy of Horus should be that he's human beneath the godhood, that he's vulnerable to doubt and fear. We get glimpses of this later on, but early in the book, he's too polished. That's great for setting up how devastating his fall will be, but it would have hit harder if we saw more cracks in the armor from the start. Maybe a moment of hesitation or some subtle doubt when Erebus starts whispering in his ear. Right now, it's like watching Superman suddenly join the Legion of Doom. You need a little bit more to make it believable. That said, the relationship between Horus and the Mournival really helps round him out. Like I stated earlier, you can genuinely see that Loken, Abaddon, Torgotten, Aximon really care about their Primarch, and vice versa. Horus really does listen to them, trusts them, and treats them as equals rather than just soldiers. But the fact that he still gets pulled into Erebus's web, despite having the foundation of loyalty and wisdom, makes his inevitable fall all the more painful. Cause why the fuck would you trust a bald cunt? You're left thinking, if Horus can fall, who else could? That's chilling in the best way. I just wish we got more of Horus's inner conflict early on to make the whole thing land even harder. Cause honestly, it's really hard to believe that Horus, the perfect son, the perfect Primarch, the Warmaster, would trust this motherfucker. So now that we've covered the things that didn't quite hit the mark in Horus Rising, let's go ahead and break it all down with the majestic milk jar scale. As a reminder, we're scoring the book in 3 key categories: story and pacing, characters and relationships, and the writing and world building, each out of 10 milk jars. Now, let's take a look at how this book stacks up. So starting off the scoring, we have the first category, which is story and pacing. While the opening and the final battles are absolutely gripping, the middle sections slow down quite a bit. Now with that said, it's not like these slower parts are boring. I still absolutely love them as they add a ton of world building and lore, which is fantastic for setting up the future events in the Horus Heresy. The story has a strong foundation, but the pacing could have been slightly tighter. So I am going to give the story and pacing category a 8 out of 10 milk jars. Next, we have characters and relationships. This is where Horus Rising really shines. The characters are complex, with Horus and Loken leading the charge as the emotional heart of the story. The dynamic within the Mournival is pure gold, and the relationships feel real and impactful. Even the remembrances get to shine. Overall, it's just amazing. This should really be the benchmark for how to write a character in Warhammer. I give this section a 10 out of 10 milk jars. Finally, we come to the last category, which is writing and world building. Abnett's writing does a fantastic job of establishing the grandeur of the Imperium and the looming threat of chaos. The world building is fucking peak, and the action scenes are so well crafted. The only flaw, I would say, is that at sometimes the world building can feel a little bit heavy-handed, and the philosophical musings can slow the narrative down a slight bit. Overall though, I absolutely love the job Abnett does in Horus Rising and setting the stage for the Great Crusade and what is to come at the beginning of the Horus Heresy. I give this section a 9 out of 10 milk jars. All in all, Horus Rising is a great start to the colossal Horus Heresy series. It sets up the world, the characters, and the tragic fall of Horus Lupercal beautifully. But it falters in a few categories, like the slight pacing issues and some of the secondary characters just not having an overall influence on the narrative. Its final score is a 9 out of 10, a great engaging read, with just a few tiny hiccups along the way. And that wraps up my review of Horus Rising, the first book in the Horus Heresy series. We've seen Horus at his peak, and we know things are only going to get darker from here. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the review, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Up next in our Horus Heresy journey, we'll be diving into the rushed mess that is false gods. The stakes get higher, and the betrayals, well, they get a lot more messier. Stay tuned, and as always guys, stay milked. The next video I think we'll be doing is how the riders bored Vulcan to death. I'm very hyped about this one. It's gonna be really funny and really, really fucking awesome. So once again guys, stay milked. I'll see you in the next video.